Hello and welcome to Pearl Magazine. The COVID-19 virus made its way across the planet in 2020, crippling economies and throwing millions out of work. For musicians in Hong Kong, it was the year the music stopped. While every industry was affected, those making a living in music were suddenly out of work as venues shut down and live gigs were banned.
If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make a change. I'm starting with the man in the mirror.
I was so happy back then. I was enjoying it.
And no message could have been.
Yeah, it's like every night it's like, yeah, this is what I want.
And make a change, gotta get it right, cause you got the time. It's when you close your eyes, when you close your mind.
Charles Tidal has been working as a full-time musician in Hong Kong for about 15 years. Last year, live music was banned as the pandemic wound its way through Hong Kong.
Oh, man, it was depressing because there's no job, you know. It feels unreal, you know, like for how many weeks and months, you know, when the lockdown started and we have no gigs, we can do, you know, we have no job. I have no job. It was hard, especially for paying rent, providing for family, you know.
He did some part-time work for a few weekends, working for an office building, checking people's temperatures in a lobby. It didn't last long.
I sent some CVs from anywhere, online, and nobody actually called. I don't know, yeah. It was hard. Honestly, I had some breakdowns, you know, back then, last year. Yeah. Being like jobless feels like a bomb, useless, you know.
How did you survive?
One thing, I sold my instruments. I had 5 bass guitars, so four of them I sold it for my, you know, rent and, you know, basic necessities and all. It was tough, you know. It is tough until up to now, you know. Actually.
The breaking point was when he was evicted at the end of the year.
I had a hard time to pay rent. I borrowed money from friends just to get by, you know, for that month and month and month and month. Until finally I got kicked out on December. Yeah, it was, man. I almost got homeless, actually. Yeah.
Desperate, he borrowed more money to pay for a cheaper place, and he forked out money to buy a bike and pay the registration to work for a food delivery company.
Sometimes I do 8 hours, sometimes I do 10 hours, sometimes I do 6 hours. It depends on the availability of shifts.
But it's not cheap delivering food. He's gone through 3 bikes. His first bike broke down beyond repair after a few weeks. A friend who was leaving Hong Kong gave him his bike, but it was stolen 4 days ago.
It's a very, very good bike. It's an old model, but very good. But it got stolen after like a month after, I guess, yeah, at my home, outside the hallway.
After buying a 3rd cheap bike that didn't make it through the month, he finally invested in a good bike. How much did you spend?
Like $3,000. It's still entry level, but it's so okay. It's so okay right now, and it's light. It's lighter. I got a lock right now. Yeah.
He works the graveyard shift.
Usually, I start at 10 in the evening until like 6 or 7 the following morning. The graveyard past midnight. It's better actually for me. People are hungry at midnight, you know. Yeah, there are a lot of orders.
He says that what he makes in a day now, he used to make in an hour or two as a musician. The last year, he says he felt so down that not only did he stop playing music for pleasure, he stopped listening to it.
Uninspired, it's like, I don't want to hear music. Yeah, it's like I feel sad when I hear music. It hurts,
But a few weeks ago, he finally felt good enough to pick up his guitar.
Good.
No. Okay.
My finger hurts.
Fingers hurt. Yes, we haven't been playing. We haven't been playing.
Man, I gotta practice. I need to practice. Man, I need weeks, I guess. To strengthen my fingers again and grow some calluses again. There's no. Look at this. It's my callus is here. Usually here, so it's transferred here. Yeah, the bike. Yeah. It feels like the first time, but it was so beautiful. I mean, I was so happy at that time. It's like I don't wanna stop. I don't wanna end that moment. But honestly, I had a hard time because my fingers are out of shape. I haven't been playing bass for how many months? Like 4 or 5 months already.
Charles is hopeful the music will come back and has decided to play regularly with his friends during his free time. Are you hopeful that maybe the gigs might come back this year in 2021?
Yeah, of course. I'm still hopeful, but not really expecting that much. The vaccination, I think it will be our pass to bring back our normal life.
Last March 2020, the first bar and band cluster happened here, affecting 103 people. Since then, there have been larger clusters, but musicians are the only group who've not been able to go back to work for over a year now.
Yes, the stigma is actually a very bad image, a very bad reputation to musicians, because everyone thought that they are the one who spread all these things. But the truth is, musicians were the victims. We explained that to the Hong Kong government. It's not the musicians that are the carrier of this disease. They were victims.
Manuela Lo is the chairwoman of the Hong Kong Musicians Union, which represents only a small portion of musicians in Hong Kong. She's spoken to government officials along with other industry representatives about how to get musicians back to work.
We help and propose all these precautions that musicians should do just to let them go back to work. Wearing masks on stage, partitions, not mingling around before and after the show. We did all these proposals to the government. Then they allow us to work again. I think it only lasted less than a month and we have the 4th outbreak. I feel so helpless. We feel so helpless because there's no other way we can discuss it with them again, because as we all know, everything is still closed.
Chris B. works as a live music organizer with her company, The Underground, and is a musician herself. She ran a survey last year to assess how she might be able to help those in need.
A friend of mine told me there was a musician who was becoming homeless and he had a family, he had 3 kids. And I'm like, how is this possible? I was like, how many of them are there?
The survey showed that more than 70% of musicians were using their savings to support themselves, and less than half were able to find work outside of music. She estimates that there are about 2,000 full-time musicians in Hong Kong.
We're talking about hundreds of musicians who borrowing money, living off their savings, many of them getting a different job, that doesn't pay as well. And then to find out there was something like 6% are either homeless or being evicted, it was actually a shock.
She said those lucky enough to find jobs got them in food deliveries if they were fit enough, or as dishwashers, which doesn't require previous experience. Like Manuela, she met with lawmakers to make a case for the musicians, but discovered that as a group, they didn't have any representation in LegCo.
Every couple of weeks we look to see what the government's saying, and they don't even mention live music. They don't even mention it. It's not even a thought.
Up next, how the music community is banding together to help those most in need and how they're trying to get back into venues. Stay with us. Welcome back to Pearl Magazine. With most full-time musicians out of work for over a year, just surviving has been a struggle as they compete with the masses of unemployed trying to get any work they can. The more fortunate in the community are doing what they can to help those most in need. One woman has launched a musicians charity, which she hopes will get funds to those struggling the most.
Because musicians don't have one representative, like the catering business, there's small union, there's a small association, there's a small alliance. It's too fragmented, and the government officials repeatedly said to me over and over, if we give money to them, how do we give it to them? If we can't give it to one association because it doesn't cover all of them.
So Chris decided to found the Musicians Foundation, which just got off the ground after months of setting up.
What they do is, like, they get money either from the government, from individuals, from corporations, and then the musicians that are in need, like, be it from COVID or if they've, had some critical illness that stops them from performing, they get a grant, and they actually pay their rent, their electricity bill, etc., etc. They don't put money in their pockets, which I think is a good model.
For musicians who can't find work, the only options are to borrow money or apply for Social Security, which doesn't give them very much and means as soon as they get work, they lose the support. Tommy Chung, the legislative counselor representing the catering industry, has taken up their cause. Like Chris, he acknowledges that many of them have had to borrow money and may be digging themselves into a hole they can't escape.
Some of them, they could be borrowing from their friends because all their friends are in the hole. So loan sharks is probably where you go, and it will take a long time to pay back. And I think government should be helping them. The self-employed, unfortunately, in this situation, is the worst group because they have no employees to look after them. The ESS scheme doesn't help them. They probably, unfortunately, do not do any MPF.
Together with Chris and Manuela, he met with government officials to press their case.
When they call, not knowing who they could get the help from, I talk to them. I get government officials to meet with them. When I talk to the chief secretary who is responsible for giving out compensations and all that, I did lobby on their behalf.
Both Manuela and Chris met with Tommy and government officials to let them know musicians would self-regulate with masks, partitions, not mixing with patrons, and COVID testing.
So they're willing to do all that. And the government agrees that should be good enough, but they still shut them down. I think they don't pay enough attention to all these workers, businesses, groups who have taken to do extra work to prevent spreading, if they get infected.
In the meantime, various fundraisers for musicians are ongoing. The Musicians Union have invited these bands to film in their office today.
Hong Kong Musicians Union decided to do this fundraising where, most bands are play songs, and for YouTube, for people to watch and hopefully donate, and so we can help the musicians that are jobless now.
The musicians performing today all have day jobs and want to do what they can to support their friends.
I'm fortunate enough that I have a full-time job outside of music, but I have a lot of friends that are musicians that are struggling at the moment. So yeah, it's been very tough on them.
Today, Casey feels lucky he took a day job before the pandemic.
Being in the band is not forever. My contract was terminated, and I had to struggle to find some ways to make ends meet, to support my family, and to support myself as well in Hong Kong. I decided that 2015, I had to find a full daytime job. I struggled because my hands are for playing guitars, and carrying trays with champagne glasses, wine glasses are too hard for me. I even broke glasses. Now currently working at Shake Shack at IFC. It feels good.
With their first round of online concerts, they raised $50,000. Today, they're distributing $500 each to the union members. Tomorrow, they'll distribute whatever is left to non-members. Voltaire Cosho, a Filipino musician in his 60s, was already struggling from bad health when the pandemic hit. Since then, he's lost his job and had to move into a subdivided flat with his wife and daughter.
We're just like sardines here when we sleep. So this is a sofa bed. Have to extend, and then we have another bed there.
This year, he began playing music on an online platform for 3 hours a day. Viewers who enjoy his music buy hearts and give them to him.
Honesty is such a lonely word. Everyone is so untrue.
Every heart means money. So one heart is around $1, something like that.
Honesty.
So we have to gather those hearts.
Mostly what I need from you.
Soundcheck. Hello.
He says his biggest fans are his relatives in Australia. What he makes a week ranges from $100 to $800, his biggest payday so far. His wife and daughter both work.
My wife and her split the rent cost and some the broadband and everything, telephone and everything. Yeah, they split all the cost.
Like, I have a friend who lives out there, and I drive by.
With venues shut and no live gigs, businesses like this music studio are suffering as well. It's used by bands to rehearse and record.
I mean, I would say it's one of the most I've struggled in a few years. In this last year, I think 70% of my work that I normally would have had either been canceled or just I didn't get. And that's tough, because when you're in a business that's based on projects, everyone is kind of like gets you to the next one, and when all of a sudden you've lost it all, you kind of have to either look for work elsewhere or just hope something comes by.
Like many others, the uncertainty of the situation is taking a mental toll on John.
I think I can run it out for the year, maybe, just mentally. I want to say that I've reached my limit, but then I reached my limit so many times that I'm now just kind of desensitized to it. And I'm looking at like the summer as kind of my mental, like, hopefully by then things have picked up. But if not, like, there's not much we can do about it. That's just the time that we live in, and it's just the phase that we're going through. And if we can get through it.
As everyone stays cautiously optimistic, Chris points out the musicians seem to be the group struggling the most in this pandemic.
The musicians are the last to recover. They were the first to suffer and they're the last to recover. You can see what they're doing with the catering establishments, right? Of course they're going to make musicians like either get vaccinated or constantly testing.
And it seems musicians are ready to do whatever it takes to get back to work. You got your vaccine?
I got it. I got my first jab.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And what about all your friends? Have they done the same thing?
Yeah, all musicians. Yeah, basically all musicians, hoping these vaccination will get us back, to work.
Yeah. So I guess you guys are willing to do anything to get back to work.
Yeah. Whatever it takes. Yeah. That's our lives, Yeah, for how many years, and then just suddenly just gone. Feels surreal, but
Father on the wind, guess I got nowhere to go. That's why I want you to know. And I'm starting.
Whether these measures taken by the industry will be enough to convince the government to let live music back in venues is yet to be seen. For now, they're struggling to survive to see that day.
If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make a change. Yeah, na 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 na.